The sun pried its way through a gap in the curtains a little too bright for my eyes. I rolled over my arm instinctively, reaching for the other side of the bed, but it only met empty air. The sheets were cold. That's strange, I thought. When does Michael ever wake up this early? As a VP of sales, his life was a blur of client dinners and late nights. On weekends, he usually slept until noon. I rubbed my eyes and padded out of the bedroom. The smell of frying eggs drifted from the kitchen. When I reached the doorway, I froze. Michael was standing there wearing my ridiculous pink apron, clumsily flipping an egg out of a pan. A glass of warmed milk sat on the counter. "You're up," he said, turning to me with a brilliant smile. "Go wash up, let's eat. The weather's perfect today, I thought I'd take you somewhere." Leaning against the doorframe, I muttered to myself, did hell freeze over? The last time he'd made me breakfast was in our first year of marriage, right before he begged me to buy him that Rolex he'd been eyeing for months. "Where are we going?" I asked. He gave me a playful, mysterious look. He set the plate of eggs on our small dining table and came over, wrapping his arms around my waist. His voice dropped a little, a wheedling tone creeping in. "Honey, you've been working so hard with all that overtime. You look pale. There's a place just outside Denver up in the foothills of the Rockies. The air is supposed to be amazing. We could go for a little hike, get some fresh air. A change of scenery. What do you think?" "A hike." I stared at him. Michael was not an outdoorsman. The man got winded walking up 3 flights of stairs, and now he was suggesting a hike. The suspicion in my gut grew stronger. "No, that sounds like too much work. Besides, I wanted to go see my mom this afternoon. Her blood pressure's been acting up lately." "Your mom, I called her yesterday, she said she's fine. Don't worry. We'll just do a gentle trail at the base of the mountain, nothing steep. It won't be strenuous." He guided me to a chair and pushed the glass of milk in front of me. "I've got it all planned out. We'll leave at 10, have lunch at this amazing place at the foot of the mountain. They're famous for their green chili, and we can be back by 3 or 4 in the afternoon. No problem. Come on, honey. Spend some time with me. It's been so long since we had a real date, just the 2 of us." His last point was true. Since his promotion, he'd been so busy we hadn't gone out alone in ages. Seeing him so excited, looking at me with those pleading eyes, my resolve weakened. I nodded. "All right. You win. But you promised just a flat, easy walk." "No problem, I'll take care of you. Promise." Michael's face lit up. He leaned in and kissed my cheek. The subtle scent of his cologne seemed unusually strong today. After breakfast, I packed a small backpack with water tissues and a light jacket. Michael was already by the front door, hurrying me along. Let's go, let's go. The earlier we get there, the quieter it'll be." Down in the parking garage, his prized black Ford Explorer was already running the passenger door open for me. As I buckled my seatbelt, I asked casually, "When did you come down here? The car's all warmed up." Michael, his hands on the wheel, stared straight ahead and mumbled, "Oh, just a minute ago. I wanted you to get a few extra minutes of sleep." The car pulled smoothly out of our complex and joined the weekend traffic. At first, Michael hummed along to the music, occasionally pointing something out on the side of the road for me to see. But after about 30 minutes, he grew noticeably quiet. His brow was slightly furrowed, as if something was weighing on him. While waiting at a red light, he drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, his eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. I couldn't stand it anymore. "What's wrong? You seem on edge." He jumped as if startled and quickly forced a smile. "Nah, just didn't sleep well last night." He paused then, as if to change the subject, turned up the car stereo. An old love song was playing. He hummed a few bars before falling silent again. Just then his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and a flicker of something crossed his face. He quickly silenced it and flipped it face down on his thigh. I couldn't see who it was, but his reaction was odd. Even for work calls, he was never this secretive around me. "Who was that?" I asked. "Spam call." Annoying as hell, he answered quickly, immediately changing the subject again. "Oh, hey honey, your sister-in-law Laura. Doesn't she like hiking, Laura? My younger brother Ethan's wife." Why was he suddenly bringing her up? I nodded. "Yeah, I think she's into all that outdoor stuff. She's always posting pictures on Instagram." "Why?" "Oh, just a thought. She seems to have a lot of stamina. Not like you, who gets tired after a few steps." His tone was a little condescending, but I didn't dwell on it. The car pressed on the buildings on either side, gradually giving way to green trees. I stared out the window, the unease in my heart like a bubble that would occasionally rise to the surface before sinking again. Maybe I was just being overly sensitive. Maybe he was just genuinely trying to give me a nice day out. I even started to look forward to the hike a little. Maybe this was what we needed to warm things up between us after so long. I'd been sitting motionless on that large rock for a good 10 minutes. The only sounds were the unnerving, high-pitched hum of the mountain quiet and the frantic, loud thumping of my own heart. The wind rustled through the forest, sounding like 1,000 people whispering and laughing at me. Michael had left me here. He had actually driven off and left me. I picked up my phone again, not wanting to give up. The screen still displayed the infuriating no-service message. I scrambled a few feet further up the incline, standing on my tiptoes and waving my phone around like an idiot. The signal bars remained empty. A chill shot up from the soles of my feet to the crown of my head. This wasn't a joke. Michael was serious. But why? We were fine just a moment ago. He was acting a little strange, but not this strange. A horrible thought burrowed into my mind. What if something happened to him? What if he was robbed? But why would a robber target him in his car on this deserted mountain road? And why would that involve leaving me behind? Or did he do this on purpose? Goosebumps erupted all over my skin at the thought. No, that can't be right. We're married. Even if the love was gone, he wouldn't try to kill me, would he? The sun sets early in the mountains. There could be wild animals at night. I couldn't let myself think about it anymore. I had to get out of here. I had to get to a place with people. Forcing myself to calm down, I shouldered my backpack and tried to get my bearings. I remembered the way we came, but it was all winding mountain roads. I had no idea how long it would take to walk back. I seemed to recall seeing a sign for a scenic overlook not too far back. There might be other tourists there. Yes, the overlook. I took a deep breath and started stumbling back down the dirt path. The trail was rougher than I expected. The loose gravel made my flat slip several times, and I nearly fell. The trees grew denser, and the sunlight fell in dappled, disorienting patches on the ground. Every snap of a twig, every bird call made my heart leap into my throat. After about 20 minutes, I was out of breath, my back soaked with sweat. Just as despair was setting in, I heard voices up ahead. A few people talking and laughing. Hope surged through me. Like a drowning person clutching at a straw, I quickened my pace, breaking into a near run. As I rounded a bend, the view opened up. A small paved platform came into view. It really was an overlook. There were 3 or 4 cars parked there, and a group of 7 or 8 people in proper hiking gear, some with trekking poles, were resting and taking pictures. The sight of other human beings nearly brought me to tears. I rushed over, forgetting all decorum, and accosted the nearest woman. "Ma'am, excuse me, do you have a signal on your phone? Mine isn't working and I got separated from my husband." The woman, who looked to be in her 50s, had a kind face. She checked her phone and shook her head. "Sorry, hun. The reception is spotty up here. Mine's been going in and out." "How did you end up all alone? That's dangerous." A man with glasses standing next to her chimed in. "Which trail did you come from? Were you hiking alone?" "No, with my husband. We drove up, but he went to get the car and told me to wait here, but he hasn't come back." I couldn't bring myself to say I'd been abandoned. It was too humiliating. I had to fudge the truth. "He went to get the car." The man frowned. "The road up ahead is closed for construction. We saw the road closed to vehicles sign on our way up. Maybe your husband had to take a detour. Closed for construction." My head buzzed. Did Michael know? If the road was blocked and he had to turn around, he should have come back to get me. Or at least called if he had a signal. Could it be that he left me here, knowing the road ahead was blocked, deliberately trapping me? Just then, a younger woman in the group pointed down the mountain. "Hey, look! Isn't that the black SUV that almost ran us off the road?" The one that was going way too fast. I followed her gaze. The winding mountain road wrapped around the hillside like a gray ribbon. In the distance, the silhouette of a black SUV was rapidly disappearing. The model looked just like Michael's Explorer. My heart sank. The older woman squinted. "Yeah, that's it." A man was driving, and there was a woman with long hair in the passenger seat, wearing a red jacket. He was driving so recklessly, he nearly put us in a ditch. A woman in a red jacket. Long hair. The blood in my veins turned to ice. In the selfie Laura had posted on Instagram this morning, she was wearing a brand new bright red windbreaker. Her long, meticulously styled wavy hair was unmistakable. A monstrous, unbelievable thought crashed over me. Michael hadn't left alone. He was with Laura. Was he trying to run away with her, leaving me to die in the mountains? Or was it something else? A massive wave of fear and rage washed over me, and my legs nearly gave out. The kind-faced woman quickly steadied me. "Are you okay, dear? You're as pale as a ghost. Did you get sunstroke?" I shook my head, unable to speak. This time, I couldn't hold back the tears. They weren't tears of sadness, but of pure, unadulterated hatred and terror. "Michael, you absolute bastard. It wasn't enough to abandon me, you had to take my sister-in-law with you. You two made a fool of me." "Easy, easy," the woman soothed. "We have a signal booster in our car. Let me try calling your husband." "What's his number?" I mechanically recited Michael's number. The woman took her phone and fiddled with something near their car. The others gathered around, offering their own opinions. One offered to give me a ride to a place with a signal. Another said I should call the police. A moment later, the woman returned, frowning. "That's weird. I've got a signal, but no one's picking up." It rang a few times and then went to voicemail. I tried again, and now it says the phone is off. Off. He wasn't even taking calls. He had decided to leave me for dead. The man with glasses looked grave. Ma'am, something isn't right here. We're heading back down anyway. You should come with us. We can take you to the town below. You need to contact your family or call the police. It's too dangerous for you to be up here alone. I was so grateful I could barely speak. Thank you, was all I could manage. Sitting in a stranger's car watching the mountain scenery flash by, my heart felt as cold as a block of ice. Just then my phone buzzed. A call from the sheriff's department. The voice on the other end was a succession of ice picks in my ear. My mind went numb. Michael was dead. He and Laura. The car went off a cliff. How could that be? I was almost hit by his car just a few minutes ago. I just came down from that goddamn overlook. Ma'am, Miss Davis, are you there? The officer's voice pulled me back from my daze. I opened my mouth, but my throat was tight. A hoarse, unfamiliar sound came out. Yes. I'm here. Are you sure? Is it really Michael Peterson? What's the VIN? My mind was a chaotic mess, but I clung to a sliver of hope. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe Michael and Laura had just abandoned me and driven off somewhere else. Maybe the people who died weren't them. The officer read out the vehicle identification number. It matched Michael's black Ford Explorer exactly. My heart plunged into an icy abyss, the last bit of warmth extinguished. We contacted you based on the vehicle registration. Our deepest condolences for your loss, ma'am. We need you to come to Denver General Hospital immediately to identify. And there's some paperwork to handle. Deepest condolences. I twisted my lips at the disconnected call. I wanted to laugh, but the expression was uglier than a sob. Who was I supposed to be mourning? The man who an hour ago had tried to leave me to die in the mountains. Then why were my hands and feet so cold? Why couldn't I stop shaking? The kind couple who had driven me down the mountain were still waiting beside me, their faces etched with concern. The woman asked gently, "Dear, what is it? What did the police say?" I looked up at them, my eyes probably empty. I heard myself speak in a tone that was so calm it was bizarre. "My husband is dead," I said. "The car went off a cliff. With my sister-in-law." "Oh my God." The woman gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Her eyes were wide with shock. "But he was fine just a little while ago. How could that happen? How could that happen?" I wanted to know too. Michael was always a careful driver. How could he have gone off a cliff, and right after abandoning me and picking up Laura? It was too strange. So strange it made my skin crawl. The image of the woman in red, Michael's switched-off phone. It all flickered before my eyes like a ghostly apparition. "Ma'am, don't move. Don't be scared. We'll take you to the hospital. Get in quickly," the man with glasses said, opening the car door. I let them guide me into the car like a puppet. Only one thought screamed in my head. This was not an accident. This was absolutely not an accident. Michael had lured me into the mountains, deliberately abandoned me, picked up Laura, and then they crashed. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? The car started again, speeding toward the city. I leaned against the window. Familiar cityscapes rushed past, but they felt a world away. My hand gripped my phone so tightly my nails dug into my palm, leaving deep crescent marks. The fear was still there, but a stronger emotion was taking root. It was hatred. A cold, blood-soaked hatred. "Michael, did you think it would all be over once you were dead? You made a fool of me for years, and in the end, you were going to sacrifice my life to complete your little romance with Laura. Now the two of you are dead and clean, but what about me? What am I supposed to tell your parents? What do I tell my own brother Ethan? Everyone will see me as the Black Widow, the one who caused their deaths. I wouldn't let them pin this on me. Never." The smell of antiseptic stung my nostrils. As I approached the entrance to the emergency room, a piercing wail split the air. "Oh my boy, Michael, how could you just leave me like this? What am I supposed to do now?" It was my mother-in-law, Susan Peterson. Two relatives were trying to hold her up, but she had collapsed into a heap on the floor, beating her chest and sobbing. Beside her, my brother-in-law Kevin was supporting their father, who looked on the verge of fainting. When Kevin saw me, his eyes were like daggers, filled with undisguised resentment and fury. And my brother Ethan, he was just standing there numb. His face was ashen, his eyes vacant, clearly still in shock from the sudden death of his wife Laura. Susan looked up and saw me. As if seeing her mortal enemy, she shoved the relatives aside and lunged at me, her finger pointing accusingly. "Chloe, you goddamn jinx, it was you. You killed my son. Tell me, did you fight with him today? Did you make him so angry that he stormed out and got into an accident? Oh my Michael, what a terrible way to die." Her words were poison needles piercing my heart one by one. All eyes in the hallway, pitying, suspicious, condemning, turned to me. The weight of their gazes was suffocating. Kevin rushed over and grabbed my arm, his grip so tight it was terrifying. "Chloe, how did my brother die?" he snarled, his voice a low growl. "Where were you? Why are the police saying only the two of them were in the car? Tell me exactly what happened." Looking at their contorted faces, hearing their baseless accusations, the rage that had been simmering inside me finally boiled over. I wrenched my arm free and stood up straight. My voice still trembled, but I spoke each word with chilling clarity. How should I know? I almost died in the mountains myself. Michael tricked me into going on a hike, then abandoned me all alone on a deserted mountain with no cell service. He drove off with Laura. I had to walk for nearly an hour before some kind people found me and gave me a ride. I was about to report my homicidal husband to the police when I got the call from them. I scanned the faces before me, my mother-in-law, my brother-in-law, and my shell-shocked brother. Then I fixed my gaze on the police officer who had come over after hearing the commotion. "Officer," I said, taking a deep breath. "I demand a full investigation into this crash. I suspect this was no accident. The relationship between my husband Michael Peterson and my sister-in-law Laura Reed was not normal. Today they conspired to abandon me in the mountains, and shortly after they drove off together, their car plunged off a cliff. This is too suspicious. I demand an autopsy. I want the whole truth to come out." As I finished, a dead silence fell over the ER entrance. Susan forgot to cry. The anger on Kevin's face froze. Even my brother Ethan finally looked up, his eyes wide with disbelief. I knew what they wanted. They wanted me to be the quiet, grieving widow who would take the blame and carry this shame. They could dream on. The lights in the corridor outside the morgue were eerily white. The smell of antiseptic mixed with something else, something indescribable, making my stomach churn. The officer's words echoed in my ears. The medical examiner had done a preliminary examination, and now we had to go through the procedures. He told my in-laws and me to stay calm and mourn. Mourn. I looked at the family before me and nearly laughed out loud. Susan was no longer wailing. It had subsided into a low, continuous sobbing. Two distant aunts supported her, her body limp as a rag doll. But every so often her swollen eyes would dart up and fix on me with a venomous glare as if she wanted to swallow me whole. Kevin had stopped grabbing at me. He leaned against the cold wall, hands stuffed in his pockets, his head bowed. I couldn't see his expression, but a dark, oppressive aura radiated from him. And my foolish brother Ethan was squatting in a corner, his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking as he wept for the wife who had so profoundly betrayed him. Stay calm. How could I stay calm? Michael and Laura's bodies were lying just beyond that door. The ugly things they had done were like an invisible rope tightening around my neck, suffocating me. Everyone thought I was the grieving family member in need of comfort, but who knew I was the one who had been pushed to the edge of the cliff, nearly shattered to pieces. A doctor in a white coat and mask emerged. He glanced at our group, his eyes settling on Kevin, who seemed to be the most in charge. "Family of Michael Peterson, you'll need to come in for identification and to sign some papers." Susan immediately started wailing again. "Oh, my son, my poor boy." She pushed past her supporters and stumbled toward the door. Kevin caught her, then said calmly to the doctor, "I'm his brother. This is our mother. We'll go in." As he led his mother past me, he paused. He turned his head and said in a voice as low and cold as ice, "Chloe, you'd better hope this has nothing to do with you. If I find out anything suspicious about my brother's death, I won't let you get away with it." I met his gaze, a fire igniting inside me, threatening to consume my very organs. I smiled coldly. "I hope the truth comes out too," I said, my voice quiet but clear. "Let's see who's really behind all this." Kevin's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing more and helped his mother inside. Ethan was still a wreck in the corner. The only people left in the hallway were me and a few of the Petersons' distant relatives I barely knew. The air was heavy, suffocating. I couldn't just wait. Michael's phone. The phone he wouldn't answer when I was stranded. The police said they found it at the crash site, shattered to pieces. And Laura's phone. Their phones had to contain something. Chat logs, call records, location data. Something that could prove their affair and their conspiracy. Taking a deep breath, I walked toward the door the doctor had come from and stopped a nurse who was about to enter. "Excuse me. My husband's personal effects. His phone, wallet. Are they in there? I'm his wife. I'd like to..." The nurse gave me a sympathetic look but shook her head professionally. "I'm sorry, ma'am. The personal belongings of anyone involved in an incident like this are collected by the police as evidence. They aren't here. You'll have to contact the lead detective." Evidence. Held by the police. My heart sank. It was standard procedure, but it meant I couldn't get my hands on the phones right away. Would the police investigate? Would they notice anything unusual in the data? Or would they just close the case as a simple traffic accident? No. I couldn't pin all my hopes on the police. Michael was a meticulous man. If he dared to do something like this, he would have taken precautions. He might have had another phone or contacted Laura through other means. Suddenly, a name came to mind. Sarah, his young assistant, who had been with him for years. Michael often had her handle his private affairs, even some of the shadier ones. Sarah might know something. I immediately walked to a quieter corner of the hallway and pulled out my phone. My hands were still trembling so much that it took me a few tries to dial her number. It rang for a long time. Just as I thought she wouldn't pick up, the call connected. "Hello, Mrs. Peterson." Sarah's voice was thick with sleep. I tried to keep my voice steady, but a sense of urgency bled through. "Sarah, it's Chloe. Mr. Peterson. Michael. He was in an accident. Did you know? There was a few seconds of silence, then a sharp intake of breath. The sleepiness was gone from her voice. What an accident! What kind of accident, Mrs. Peterson? You're not serious. A car crash. He's gone, I said bluntly, giving her no time to process the shock. Sarah, I need to ask you something very important, and I need you to be honest with me. Did Michael ask you to handle any personal matters for him recently? Like booking a remote hotel or getting a different phone or a burner SIM card for him? Sarah hesitated. Mrs. Peterson, Mr. Peterson always said not to discuss his private affairs with anyone. And now that he's just… I heard the fear and hesitation in her voice and saw a glimmer of hope. I hardened my tone, adding a hint of a threat. Sarah, Michael is gone, but this isn't over. The police are investigating, and this might not be a simple accident. If you know something and you hide it, you could be considered an accomplice after the fact. Think very carefully. No, Mrs. Peterson, I'll tell you everything. Sarah sounded terrified, on the verge of tears. About a month ago, he asked me to get him a prepaid burner SIM. He said it was for an important client who was being harassed by spam calls. And then, last Wednesday, he had me book a 2-night stay at a place called the Pine Ridge Lodge up near the Rockies under the pretense of a project site visit. But he ended up canceling, said the project fell through. He was just annoyed about losing the deposit. A burner SIM. A lodge in the mountains. Last Wednesday, that was right around when he started trying to coax me into this hike. My heart hammered against my ribs. Michael and Laura had it all planned. They were supposed to have their little getaway at that lodge. Did something prevent them, so they rescheduled for today, deciding to get rid of the inconvenient wife in the process. What was the number for that SIM card? And the exact address and booking info for the lodge? Send them to my phone right now, I commanded, suppressing my excitement. Yes, Mrs. Peterson. I'll find it and send it right away. Please just don't tell anyone I told you. Sarah's voice was shaking badly. After hanging up, I leaned against the cold wall. I felt drained, but my mind was clearer and more alert than ever. There was even a bloodthirsty kind of excitement coursing through me. Michael, Laura, you thought it would all be over once you were dead, didn't you? Well, it's just getting started. I'm going to follow the trail of crumbs you left behind and expose every last one of your dirty secrets. Just then, the morgue door opened again. Kevin emerged, his face ashen, supporting a devastated Susan. The moment she saw me, the vacant look in her eyes reignited with a crazed hatred. She shoved Kevin aside and like a mad lioness lunged at me again. Chloe, you venomous bitch. You still have the nerve to be here. Police! Where are the police? Arrest her. She killed my son Michael's phone. His phone is missing. It has to be you. You took it to destroy the evidence. Susan's shriek about the missing phone pierced the false calm of the hallway like a needle. Everyone stared at me. Suspicion filled their eyes. Even Ethan, still slumped in the corner, looked up, a flicker of doubt in his vacant expression. Kevin strode forward and grabbed my arm again, his grip even stronger this time, the pressure on my bones excruciating. Chloe is what my mother said. True. Where is my brother's phone? Did you take it? I tried to shake him off, but his grip was like a vice. Looking at his face twisted with rage and suspicion, I could no longer contain the firestorm inside me. Are you insane? You and your mother. The police just told us that all personal effects are being held as evidence. What would I take? I haven't even set foot inside that room. Just because you can't find something, you're trying to pin it on me. Are you hiding something? What the hell are you talking about? Kevin's eyes were bloodshot. Am I sneered, my gaze sweeping over Susan's face, her makeup smeared into a ghastly mask. You keep saying I killed Michael. Where's your proof? It's all just accusations. Michael lured me into the mountains today and abandoned me. He drove off with Laura. The police can verify that with the tourists who were at the overlook. I'd like to ask you a question. Why would he do that? To kill his wife of 5 years so he could run off with his sister-in-law. I emphasized the words, sister-in-law, my eyes like daggers as I stared at the still dazed Ethan. He flinched, his face growing even paler. His lips trembled, but he couldn't form a word. You're spitting poison. Slandering my son. Susan trembled with rage, pointing a shaking finger at me. How could Michael ever look at a woman like Laura? It was you. You must have hounded him, held something over his head to push him. To this, I pushed him, and that's why he ran off with Laura and ended up dead. I cut her off, my voice rising to a sharp pitch I didn't recognize. Susan, get a grip. It's your son who's dead. Instead of trying to find out the real reason he died, you're here flinging mud at the daughter-in-law who almost died with him. Who are you trying to protect? Or what are you trying to hide? That's enough. A low voice boomed, cutting through our standoff. It was the older police detective who had taken our statements. He walked over, his brow furrowed. This is a hospital. What's all the commotion? Do you want to make an even bigger scene? He looked at Susan and Kevin. The deceased's personal effects, including his cell phone, are in police custody as part of the investigation. Until our investigation is complete, I would advise against making baseless accusations, especially against a member of the victim's family." He emphasized victim's family, his gaze resting on me for a moment. Susan and Kevin fell silent, but their glares were still poisonous. The detective turned to me. His tone softened slightly, but it was still professional and distant. "Miss Davis, we've noted your statement. We will treat it as a significant lead, but for now, please cooperate with us in handling the subsequent procedures. And regarding your claim that Mr. Peterson and Miss Reed were having an affair." Evidence. What evidence did I have? I had been a fool. I had trusted Michael so completely I never imagined he could be unfaithful. All the little signs, the late nights with flimsy excuses, the sudden password on his phone, his overly enthusiastic praise of Laura, they were all just feelings, not proof. No, my voice came out dry. "But officer, what happened today is the biggest red flag of all. Why would a man lure his wife on a hike just to abandon her in the middle of nowhere? Does that sound normal to you?" The detective nodded, jotting something down. "Your concerns are on the record. We will be looking into their call logs, the vehicle's GPS data, and their social circles. But for now, the evidence will tell the story." He closed his notebook. "All right, that's all for today. You should all go home. Await the official report from the ME's office and further contact from us. Keep your phones on." The police left. It was just us family members, a tinderbox, waiting to explode. Kevin shot me one last venomous look, then helped the nearly catatonic Susan away, followed by their relatives. He didn't even glance at Ethan. Ethan, looking lost, finally stood up. He gave me a complicated look, but in the end said nothing, just turned and stumbled away alone. In an instant, the crowded hallway was empty, leaving only me. The cold white light shone down, casting a long, lonely shadow. I felt abandoned by the entire world, even more so than I had in the mountains. At least there I knew who my enemy was. Here it felt like the enemy was everywhere, even among the family of the man I had just lost. I walked slowly toward the hospital exit. The night air was chilly. I pulled out my phone. The screen showed the message Sarah had sent me a few minutes ago, a phone number, the detailed address of the Pine Ridge Lodge, and a map link. The burner phone. I tried calling it. Unsurprisingly, it was switched off. "Michael, you really did think of everything. A burner SIM to contact Laura, a lodge booked for your little getaway. You thought that once you got rid of the obstacle me, you could run off with my money and live happily ever after. But you can plan all you want, you can't plan for fate. You didn't expect to end up a wreck at the bottom of a cliff. But was it just fate?" Michael wasn't a bad driver. The mountain road had curves, but it wasn't treacherous. How did he manage to go off a cliff so soon after leaving me? A terrible thought resurfaced. What if there was a third party involved? Someone who didn't want them alive. Someone who didn't want a certain secret to get out. I stood at the hospital entrance watching the traffic and the glittering neon signs. This city I had lived in for years suddenly felt alien and dangerous. Michael and Laura were dead, but this was far from over. The burner SIM, the unvisited lodge, the unnaturally hostile reactions from my mother-in-law and brother-in-law. It was all part of an invisible net, and I was caught right in the middle. I couldn't just sit back and wait. The police investigation would take time, and who knew how deep they would dig. I had to investigate on my own. Michael's computer. His laptop in his home office, the one he never let me touch. There had to be something on it. And Laura. Did she keep a diary? A secret social media account? I took a deep breath of the cold air and clutched my phone. "Michael, Laura, just wait. Even though you're dead, I'll dig you out of your graves if I have to, just to see for myself how black your hearts really were. This game isn't over yet." 3 days later, Michael and Laura's funeral was held on a drizzly morning. The sky was a uniform gray, and the cold, fine rain tapped against the black umbrellas like 1,000 tiny needles. The air in the cemetery was damp and heavy, thick with the smell of wet earth and decaying flowers. 2 caskets draped in identical white cloths sat side by side next to the open graves. The Petersons were gathered around Michael's. My brother Ethan stood alone before Laura's, his back hunched, looking as if he'd aged 10 years in a matter of days. I stood a short distance away under my own black umbrella, belonging neither to the Peterson clan nor to Ethan's solitary grief. I was an outsider, a cold observer of this absurd farewell. Susan was no longer trying to attack me, but her eyes like a viper's would occasionally dart from the crowd of Petersons to fix on me a chilling, hateful stare. Kevin remained expressionless, a cold statue. Only when the pastor began the eulogy did the corners of his mouth twitch downward, a flicker not of sorrow but of something strangely unreadable. The ceremony was oppressive. The pastor's words were a generic litany about being called home to the Lord, about finding peace. The words made my stomach turn. Peace? Did Michael and Laura deserve that? One betrayed his wife, the other her husband, conspiring together only to meet this end. It was karma. As the service was drawing to a close, Kevin stepped forward, clearing his throat as if to give a thank you on behalf of the family. He scanned the attendees, his gaze finally landing on me. It lingered for a few seconds, no longer just resentful but tinged with a condescending air as if he were about to pass judgment. "Thank you all for coming today to see my brother on his final journey." Kevin's voice, though not loud, carried clearly in the quiet cemetery. "His sudden passing has left our family devastated. But what's done is done, and the living must go on. To ensure our mother can live out her years in peace, and to settle my brother's affairs, some matters must be dealt with promptly." My heart sank. I had a bad feeling. Sure enough, Kevin changed the subject, turning his attention to me. His tone was businesslike, almost deliberately distant. "Chloe, according to custom, we need to sort out and divide my brother's estate as soon as possible, and there is something you should know." He gestured to a man in a black suit standing beside him, clearly a lawyer. Kevin took a manila envelope from the lawyer, slowly opened it, and pulled out a document. "This is a life insurance policy my brother took out." Kevin held the document up in my direction. I was too far to read the fine print, but I could clearly see the large insurance company logo and the bold words, "accidental death and dismemberment." "The policy is for $5 million, he said, pausing, his eyes like icy nails on my face. "And the sole beneficiary is our mother, Susan Peterson." $5 million. The beneficiary was his mother. My mind went blank as if I'd been hit with a sledgehammer. "Michael, when did he take out such a massive policy?" I knew nothing about it. In our 5 years of marriage, he managed his own salary, but he always discussed major financial decisions with me. But this policy? He had hidden it completely. Why was his mother the beneficiary? Shouldn't it have been me, his spouse? Was he wary of me from the start? Or did he somehow foresee his own accidental death and want to leave the money to his mother? Right on cue, Susan began to sob, again dabbing at her face with a handkerchief. But through the gap I saw her peek at me. There wasn't a trace of sorrow in her eyes, only the naked greed of someone about to come into a fortune and a smug sense of victory. Kevin's voice, cold and in control, cut through the air again. "So, Chloe, regarding the condo, the cars, and his investment accounts, perhaps you could let us know when you're free to sit down with our mother's lawyer and settle things. My mother is old, and this shock has been too much for her. She needs peace. I'm sure you understand." "Understand? Understand what?" "That you and your mother can't wait to carve up my husband's assets before his body is even cold. That you're using a secret multi-million-dollar insurance policy to cut me out of the picture." The relatives around us began to whisper, their eyes darting between me and the Petersons. Some looked pitying, some were just enjoying the show, but most had an "I knew it" expression. In their eyes, I, Chloe Davis, was an outsider. Now that Michael was dead, it was only natural that I would be kicked to the curb. Rainwater dripped from the edge of my umbrella onto the back of my hand. It was cold. I gripped the handle, my nails digging into my palm. A ball of fire was lodged in my chest, burning my throat. But I forced myself to remain calm. "Don't panic, Chloe. Don't you dare show them any weakness." I lifted my head and met the smug, greedy eyes of Kevin and his mother. My face was a blank mask, but I managed a faint, mocking smile. "Kevin, Susan, aren't you two in a bit of a hurry? Michael isn't even in the ground yet, and you're already so eager to divide his assets." I took a step forward, the umbrella tilting slightly, letting the cold rain streak down my cheek. "And the police investigation isn't even finished. The official cause of death hasn't been determined. Why are you in such a rush to claim the insurance money and divvy up the property? What if there's a problem with the payout? For example, if the accident happened so soon after the policy was taken out, wouldn't the insurance company suspect fraud?" I deliberately said the words, "insurance fraud," lightly, but with enough force to make the color drain from Kevin and Susan's faces. Kevin's eyes sharpened. "What are you trying to say, Chloe? Don't talk nonsense here. Don't disrespect my brother." "Nothing at all," I said, looking at him calmly. "I'm just reminding you that everything needs to follow proper procedure. What's mine by law, I won't take a penny less. What isn't mine, I don't want. But if someone thinks they can take advantage of the situation, treat me like a pushover and try to swallow what's rightfully mine." My gaze moved from the insurance policy to Susan's hand, clutching her handkerchief, and finally back to Kevin's dark face. I enunciated each word with force. "Then I'll have no choice but to hire the best lawyer I can find and fight you. I have a lot of questions myself, and I'd be more than happy to get to the bottom of them with my lawyer and the police." With that, I turned my back on their pale, shocked faces and walked step by steady step away from that sickening cemetery. The rain soaked the cuffs of my pants. I was cold, but the fire inside me was burning hotter than ever. "Michael, you really left behind a brilliant scheme. A huge insurance policy, a greedy mother, a predatory brother. Fine. If you set the stage, then I, Chloe Davis, will dance. We'll see who's left crying when the curtain falls." After the funeral, I didn't go back to the cold apartment filled with Michael's memories. I checked into a business hotel near my office. After swiping the key card and locking the door, I dropped my bag and collapsed next to the bed like a deflated balloon. The room smelled of disinfectant and air freshener, not pleasant, but at least it was clean and quiet. No nauseating calculations, no prying eyes. I leaned against the cold headboard and closed my eyes. Scenes from the funeral flashed in my mind, Susan's hypocritical sobs, Kevin's triumphant face as he held up the policy, the pitying and scornful looks from the relatives. A $5 million insurance policy with his mother as the beneficiary. Michael, you calculated everything down to the bone. If you died, the money would go to your mother and I, your legal wife would be kicked out. Then Kevin, under the guise of managing his mother's inheritance, would naturally take over the condo, the car, and your savings. He might even try to get your VP position at the company. And what about me? Was 5 years of sharing a bed with you, of taking care of our home, worth being abandoned on a mountain to be wolf-eaten and then kicked out with nothing? Is there a cheaper bargain in this world? I shot up, rage surging through me. No, I couldn't let this happen. The police were all about evidence and procedure. They were slow. The Petersons were breathing down my neck. I had to find my own breakthrough. Michael's laptop. Yes, the one in his home office. The one he cherished, password protected, and never let me touch. There had to be something on it. And Laura. She might have left clues too. I immediately picked up my phone and called my brother Ethan. He took a long time to answer. His voice was hoarse and listless. Chloe. Ethan. I tried to keep my voice calm. How are you holding up? Getting by, he sighed, his voice thick with congestion. Chloe, don't take what Kevin said at the funeral to heart. And Susan. She's just grieving. I sneered internally. Grieving? She looked like she was blinded by greed. But I didn't say it. This wasn't the time to provoke him. I know, Ethan. I have a question. Laura, did she have a habit of writing in a diary? Or did she have any other social media accounts you didn't know about? Maybe something private. Ethan was silent for a moment, as if trying to remember. Then he said wearily, a diary, I don't think so. She was always very neat with her things. As for accounts, I only know about her Facebook and Instagram. She never mentioned anything else. Chloe, why are you asking? She's gone. What's the point of looking for this stuff? No reason. Just curious. I knew I wouldn't get anything more from him. Get some rest. Call me if you need anything. I hung up a little disappointed. It seemed like a dead end on Laura's side for now. That left Michael's laptop. But how could I get it? Kevin and Susan were probably guarding that apartment like hawks. Could I even get back in? Just then, my phone rang again. An unfamiliar number. I hesitated, then answered. Hello, is this Chloe Davis? A calm male voice, somewhat familiar, but I couldn't place it. Yes. Who is this James Harrison? I froze. James Harrison. The CEO of Apex Dynamics, the biggest rival to Michael's company Innovatech. Why was he calling me Mr. Harrison? What can I do for you? I was on high alert. Michael used to complain about Harrison constantly calling him a cunning fox who had stolen a lot of business from Innovatech. The two companies were bitter rivals. Harrison's voice was unreadable. Miss Davis, my condolences on your loss. I'm calling and I apologize for the intrusion because I've heard some troubling rumors about your husband's accident. And it seems there are some unusual movements within your company as well. My heart pounded. His sources were good. He already knew about Kevin making a power grab. What are you trying to say? I remained cool. It's not something to discuss over the phone. If you're interested, I'd like to meet. I may have some information that could be of use to you. Harrison paused, then added. It concerns some abnormal financial flows from your husband before his death, and some questionable data from a certain project at your company. Financial flows. Questionable data. My heart sank. Was Michael's death connected to his work? When and where? I didn't hesitate. I needed any lifeline I could get. I didn't know if he was a friend or foe, but I had to hear what he had to say. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. The Gilded Bean, a coffee shop downtown. It's quiet there, Harrison said concisely and hung up. I held the phone, my palm sweating. James Harrison, Michael's sworn enemy, showing up when I was at my most vulnerable, offering information. It was too strange. Was he really trying to help me? Or was he trying to use me to attack Innovatech or Kevin? Either way, it was a chance. A chance to uncover the truth about Michael and Laura's deaths, and maybe even a chance to fight back against the Petersons. I couldn't let it go. The next afternoon, I dressed presentably using a little makeup to hide my haggardness and went to the coffee shop. The atmosphere was quiet and elegant. Harrison was already there, dressed in a simple gray shirt, calmly brewing tea at a small table. He looked younger than his age, with deep-set eyes that held the calm sharpness of a seasoned player in the business world. Miss Davis. Please have a seat, he gestured, his tone even. I sat down opposite him and got straight to the point. Mr. Harrison, what is this information you mentioned? Harrison poured me a cup of tea. It was a clear golden liquid with a delicate fragrance. He didn't answer right away, but studied me for a moment. You're much calmer than I expected, Miss Davis. I took a sip. The tea was slightly bitter with a sweet aftertaste. What's the alternative? Weep until I'm kicked out with nothing. I set the cup down and looked him in the eye. Mr. Harrison, I don't have much time. Kevin and his mother won't leave me alone. If you have something to say, please say it. A hint of a smile touched Harrison's lips, as if he appreciated my directness. He set down the teapot and took a tablet out of his briefcase, pulling up a file and sliding it over to me. First this. On the screen was a grainy dashcam video. It seemed to have been filmed from a car coming from the opposite direction. A black SUV identical to Michael's Explorer was speeding down a mountain road. Suddenly, the vehicle swerved violently, smashed through the guardrail, and disappeared over the cliff. The whole thing took maybe 3 seconds. My heart seized. This was the crash. This footage is from the dashcam of a tourist who was passing by that day, Harrison said calmly. They didn't realize what they had until they reviewed the footage later. They thought it was strange but were hesitant to come forward due to privacy concerns and legal hassle. I obtained a copy through certain channels. I stared at the short looping video, my hands trembling slightly. What does this prove? It looks like an accident. On its own it does, Harrison's tone shifted. But it becomes very interesting when you combine it with the timeline. He swiped the screen to show a magnified screenshot of the timestamp accurate down to the second. The crash had occurred almost at the exact same time I was found by the other tourists at the overlook. In other words, Michael had crashed immediately after dropping me off and picking up Laura. A chill ran down my spine. The timing was too tight. It was too much of a coincidence. And then there's this. Harrison opened another file. It was a screenshot of bank transaction records. The account holder was Michael, but it was an account I'd never seen before. In the month before the accident, Michael transferred a total of $300,000 from this account in 3 separate transactions to an offshore shell corporation. The beneficial owner of this company is hard to trace, but several of the intermediary steps point to a consulting firm where your brother Ethan used to work. Ethan. My brother. My head spun. Michael was funneling money and it was connected to Ethan. How was that possible? Ethan was just a hardworking, simple programmer. How could he be involved? That's impossible. Ethan wouldn't, I blurted out. I'm not saying, Mr. Reed was directly involved. Harrison cut me off, his eyes sharp. I'm merely stating the facts of the money trail. The destination of this money is highly suspicious. Furthermore, internally at Innovatech, there are signs that key data from the Dawn project, which Michael was in charge of, has been manipulated and leaked over the past 6 months. The IP addresses traced by the tech department point to an internal source, but they haven't been able to identify a specific individual. The siphoned money, the project data leak, the strange timing of the crash. These fragmented pieces of information were swirling in my head, not yet forming a complete picture. But a strong intuition told me that Michael and Laura's deaths were not just a simple case of an affair gone wrong. There was a much larger conspiracy behind it, one involving huge sums of money, and even corporate crime. I looked up at Harrison, my voice a little dry. Mr. Harrison, why are you telling me all this? What do you want? Harrison leaned forward slightly, lacing his fingers together on the table. His gaze was direct. 2 reasons. First, I have no respect for men like Kevin Peterson, who prey on the weak and kick people when they're down. Second, Innovatech is in turmoil. The Dawn project is important to Apex Dynamics as well. I don't want to see it collapse because of some internal rot. That's not good for business. In a way, helping you is like cleaning up the battlefield for myself. He paused, looking me in the eye. Miss Davis, you are in a very dangerous position. The Petersons will not let you go. And there may be others behind them. You need allies and you need a more professional investigation. I can provide some resources, but ultimately how you proceed is up to you. I was silent, my fingers unconsciously tracing the rim of the warm teacup. Harrison's words were like a faint lantern in the pitch-black darkness before me. I couldn't see the whole picture, but at least it pointed me in a direction. The risks were high. I couldn't fully trust him. But right now, I had no better options. The flames of revenge burned hotter in my heart. Michael. Laura. And all you hyenas hiding in the shadows. Just wait. I, Chloe Davis, am done being a victim. I took a deep breath and met Harrison's gaze, my decision made. Mr. Harrison, let's work together. I need your help with 2 things. First, I need a thorough investigation into that offshore company and the money trail. Second, I need a reliable private investigator to watch Kevin and his mother's every move. Harrison nodded, a barely perceptible smile on his lips. A wise choice. Consider it done. When I left the coffee shop, the afternoon sun felt a little glaring. I hailed a cab back to the hotel, leaned back, and closed my eyes. The information Harrison had provided was like a cold stone dropped into my heart, creating not ripples but a tidal wave. The $300,000 transfer the shell company, pointing to Ethan's old firm, the data breach in Michael's project, and that vivid, suffocating crash footage. It all pointed to one conclusion: Michael and Laura's deaths were not simple. Behind them lay a conspiracy of unimaginable financial and corporate stakes. Harrison was an old fox. He certainly had his own motives for helping me. But for now, our interests aligned. He had pointed me in a direction and promised to deploy his resources. This gave me some leverage. I was no longer fighting the Peterson family alone. But the most crucial thing right now was Michael's laptop. It could hold the key to everything. I had to get it, and I had to get it fast. Once Kevin and his mother took full control of the house and the company, they would destroy any evidence that was inconvenient for them. I couldn't wait. I couldn't even wait until nightfall. I had to act now. I told the cab driver to change the destination to the condo I had shared with Michael. Getting out at the entrance, I didn't go straight in. I stopped at a convenience store and bought a plain baseball cap and a large canvas tote bag. I pulled the cap down low and blended in with a group of women returning from grocery shopping, keeping my head down as I entered the complex. My heart was pounding. I tried to look casual, but my steps quickened. When I reached our building, I hid behind a large bush and watched. Sure enough, a familiar car was parked at the entrance. Kevin's car. They were here. I waited patiently. After about 20 minutes, Kevin and his mother Susan came out of the lobby. Neither looked happy. They seemed to be arguing about something. Susan was clutching a heavy-looking jewelry box. Kevin helped her into the car, and they drove off. This was my chance. They had probably gone to discuss how to deal with me or what to do with the contents of that jewelry box. The condo was likely empty. I didn't dare take the elevator, afraid of cameras or running into a neighbor. I took the fire stairs. Our unit was on the 12th floor. By the time I reached our door, I was out of breath, a thin layer of sweat on my back. Standing before the familiar door, I took a deep breath and pulled out my key. It slid into the lock, and with a soft click, the door opened. They hadn't changed the locks. They either didn't think I'd dare come back, or they were just careless. I slipped inside and quickly locked the door behind me. The heavy curtains were drawn, making the apartment dim. The air was stale with a faint, unfamiliar smell. The living room was a mess, clear evidence that Kevin and his mother had been rummaging through things. I had no time to waste. I went straight to the home office. Quote, the door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open and my heart sank. The desk was empty. Michael's silver laptop was gone. Did they take it or hide it? Forcing myself to stay calm, I started a frantic search. The desk drawers, the cabinets behind the bookshelves, nothing. Was I too late? Just as I was about to give up, my eyes fell on a dusty storage bin in the corner, filled with old magazines and junk. Michael was a bit of a neat freak. All his things were meticulously organized. This bin was the only exception. He always kept it messy, and never let me tidy it. On a hunch, I went over and opened it. It was filled with old journals and papers. I reached in, pushing aside the clutter, and felt my way to the bottom. My fingertips brushed against a hard rectangular edge. My heart leaped. I shoved the junk aside. There it was. Michael's laptop tucked inside its plain black case, hidden at the very bottom beneath a pile of old magazines. Kevin and his mother must have searched the office, but they either thought this old laptop was worthless or never imagined Michael would hide it here. I quickly pulled it out, clutching it to my chest like a lifeline. I couldn't stay any longer. I tidied up the mess I'd made, put the laptop in my tote bag, and prepared to leave. As I passed through the living room, a few torn-open mailers on the coffee table caught my eye. They were all addressed to Kevin. A piece of paper was sticking out of one. The words "Share Transfer Agreement" were printed at the top. The parties were Susan Peterson and Kevin Peterson. Share transfer. Before Michael's body was even cold, they were already making moves on his Innovatech shares. They were fast. It wasn't just the $5 million insurance policy Michael had left behind. It was control of the company. That must have been what Kevin wanted most. I sneered to myself but didn't touch the papers. Now was not the time to tip my hand. I quietly opened the front door, checked that the hallway was empty, slipped out and gently closed the door. Then I took the fire stairs all the way back down. Back in my hotel room with the door locked, I finally let out a long breath of relief. My back was soaked with cold sweat. I placed the laptop on the bed. It felt like Pandora's box. I plugged it in and pressed the power button. The screen lit up, displaying a password prompt. What would Michael use? His birthday. My birthday. Our anniversary. I tried a few, but they all failed. What would a cautious, paranoid man like him use? I suddenly remembered something. One night, Michael had come home drunk. While hugging the toilet, he had mumbled a string of letters and numbers. It sounded like an internal project code. At the time, I just thought it was strange. The code was CX 25%. I typed it in. The screen flickered. Password correct. The desktop appeared. It was clean with only a few icons. I took a deep breath and opened my computer. Besides the main system drive, there was another partition labeled Work, Backup. The storage bar showed it was almost full. That was odd. Michael's work files were supposed to be on the company server. I clicked on the drive. Inside were a few folders. Project, Data, Financials, Personal. The names were innocuous. I clicked on Personal first. It contained several encrypted zip files with nonsensical names. They required another password. I tried CX 25%, but it didn't work. He'd hidden the most important things deeper. I went back and clicked on financials. Inside were several Excel spreadsheets. I randomly opened one named Assets. The sheet listed bank accounts and investment products. As I read down the list, my heart beat faster and faster. The assets listed here far exceeded what I knew of our joint finances. There were multiple bank accounts I had never heard of, with deposits totaling nearly $400,000. There were also large investments in several companies I didn't recognize. Michael had been hiding so much money from me. The $300,000 he had siphoned off was probably just the tip of the iceberg. I kept scrolling. At the bottom, there was a separate tab labeled Special. I clicked it. The blood in my veins turned to ice. The sheet detailed the $5 million accidental death policy. The policy number, the date of issue, the premium, it was all there. The beneficiary was indeed Susan Peterson. And it had been taken out just 3 months ago. Right below it was another entry. Policyholder Michael Peterson. Type double indemnity for vehicular accident death. Payout a staggering $7 million. And the beneficiary of this policy was Laura Reed. The date of issue was just 1 day after the $5 million policy. My hands and feet went numb. A chill shot from the soles of my feet to the top of my head. Michael hadn't just taken out a massive policy for himself with his mother as the beneficiary. He had secretly taken out another one for Laura, with Laura as the beneficiary. What was going on? If he died, his mother got $5 million. If Laura died, Laura herself got $7 million. But Laura was already dead. So where would that money go? A horrifying thought struck me like lightning. In Michael's original plan, was Laura not supposed to die? Or was her death meant to bring an even bigger payout? Was this $7 million supposed to be hush money for Laura? Or was it for someone who could collect it through her? This game was far bigger and far dirtier than I had ever imagined. Michael, Laura, Susan, Kevin, they all had a role to play. And I had been the fool, the pawn to be sacrificed at any moment. I stared at the 2 insurance policy entries on the screen, my jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. Fine. Just fine. You all want to play, then I'll play along. Let's see who checkmates who in the end. I immediately took out my phone and took several clear photos of the 2 policy records on the screen. This was crucial evidence. Then, I carefully copied these sensitive folders from the laptop onto a portable hard drive I had brought with me. After I was done, I closed the laptop and leaned back against the headboard. I felt completely drained, but my mind was unnaturally sharp, almost feverish. I had some of the evidence now. The next step was to figure out how to use it to rip off their masks and make them pay. The 2 insurance policies on the laptop screen were seared into my mind like a brand. Michael had taken one out for himself beneficiary, his mother. He'd taken another out for Laura beneficiary, strangely Laura herself. This bizarre setup was a tangled knot that tightened around my chest, but it was also the key that could unlock a much darker door. The air in the hotel room felt thick. I couldn't just sit here and wait for news from Harrison. I had to do something myself. Kevin. He was the most important breakthrough right now. He was Michael's brother, deeply involved in the company. Susan listened to everything he said. He had to know something. He might even be a key player in this whole scheme. How could I sound him out, confront him with the insurance records? No, that would just spook him. I needed a way to make him expose himself. I stared at the photo on my phone of the $7 million policy with Laura as the beneficiary. An idea began to form. What Kevin wanted most right now was to get his hands on Michael's inheritance and company control as quickly as possible and kick me out. He had to be impatient. People in a hurry make mistakes. I took a deep breath, found Kevin's number, and after a moment's hesitation, I called. It rang several times before he picked up. His voice was laced with irritation, and the background was noisy. He sounded like he was at a bar. Hello, what do you want? I forced my voice to sound tired, compromising even a little weak. Kevin. It's me. I know. Just say what you want. I'm busy. His tone was dismissive. I've been thinking. I paused as if I'd made a difficult decision. About what you said at the funeral. About Michael's estate. I was wondering if we could talk about it. There was a 2-second silence on the other end. Kevin's tone softened slightly, but it was still guarded. Talk. What do you want to talk about? Your mother is old and she's been through so much. That $5 million policy, that's what Michael left for her, so I won't contest it. I made a concession, first trying to lower his guard. But the condo, the car, the company shares. That's our community property, isn't it? I can't just leave with nothing. I'm still young. How am I supposed to live? I played the part of the poor widow just asking for what was fair. Kevin snorted on the other end, his contempt undisguised. So you're finally thinking about your own future, Chloe. Too bad you weren't this smart when my brother was alive. Community property. It depends on who earned it. My brother made all that money. What does it have to do with you? You can't say that, Kevin. Legally. Stop with the legally. Crap, he cut me off impatiently. I'll tell you what, out of respect for my brother, I can give you some of the savings. Consider it severance pay. But the condo, the car, the company shares, don't even dream about it. That all belongs to the Peterson family. His attitude was as unyielding as I expected. I changed the subject casually, tossing out the bait. Okay, let's say I give up the house, the car, and the shares. But what about that other policy, the one Michael took out for Laura? That's $7 million. Shouldn't that go to my brother Ethan? After all, Laura was legally his wife. Dead silence on the other end. Even the background noise seemed to disappear for a moment. I could clearly hear Kevin's ragged breathing. After a good 7 or 8 seconds, his voice came back dry and hoarse, laced with a poorly suppressed shock and panic. What are you talking about? What $7 million policy? What about Laura Chloe? I'm warning you, don't spread rumors. He didn't know that I knew. Or rather, he didn't think I could possibly know in such detail. His reaction was too extreme. It was far beyond how one would react to a former sister-in-law spreading rumors. It was the panic of having a secret exposed. I sneered internally, but my tone was innocent and confused. What rumors? I was just going through some of Michael's things, and I saw it. A document plain as day. Policyholder Laura Reed. Beneficiary herself. Payout $7 million. It even said double indemnity for a vehicular accident. That's a lot of money. As Laura's sole heir, shouldn't my brother Ethan inherit it? Kevin, don't tell me you're planning on pocketing that too. That would be going too far. I deliberately made it sound like I'd stumbled upon it by chance, and focused on the inheritance issue to provoke him further. Bullshit, Kevin suddenly yelled, his voice cracking. Chloe, listen to me. There's no such thing. Don't make things up. Why would my brother take out a policy for Laura? You either misread it or you forged it. I'm warning you, if you mention this again, there will be hell to pay. Why are you so angry? I was calmer now. Whether it's forged or I misread it, we can just find the original policy or check with the insurance company, can't we? I was wondering the same thing myself. Why would Michael secretly take out such a huge policy for his sister-in-law? When did they get so close? My last sentence was practically an accusation of an affair. Shut up. Kevin exploded like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Chloe, listen to me. There is no policy. Nothing. My brother and Laura were clean. If you slander my brother one more time, I'm done with you. And as for his estate, you won't get a single dime. You just wait. He slammed the phone down. The line went dead. I slowly lowered my phone, a cold smile spreading across my lips. Kevin's reaction was the best confession. He not only knew about this policy, but he was terrified of it being exposed. He denied it desperately, even resorting to threats to stop me from digging further. This meant that behind this policy lay a secret that could never see the light of day. Laura's death, Michael's death. It was all connected to this bizarre policy. Kevin's role in this was much more than just a greedy brother-in-law. Who was he trying to protect by covering this up so desperately? His dead brother's reputation? Or himself? My heart raced not with fear, but with excitement. I had finally stepped on the fox's tail. It was just a tiny piece, but it was enough. I now knew which direction to pull. The next step was to find out who would ultimately get the money from this policy. Laura was dead. The huge sum would legally go to her heir, my brother Ethan. But in his current state, could he handle it, or was someone already eyeing that money, maybe even manipulating Ethan to get control of it? Kevin, Susan, or someone else? It looked like I needed to pay a visit to my grief-stricken brother. See how he was really doing. And maybe, just maybe, I could find more clues about Laura and this insurance policy from him. Kevin, just wait. The harder you try to cover this up, the more I'm going to dig. I'm going to expose just how rotten this whole thing is for everyone to see. Kevin's frantic denial on the phone was the best kind of fuel, burning away the chill I'd felt upon discovering the bizarre insurance policy. He was undoubtedly scrambling right now, trying to cover his tracks. All the more reason I couldn't let him. The original policy document or the insurance company's records were solid proof, but I couldn't get them right now. Kevin would be on guard. I had to find a breakthrough elsewhere. Laura. On the surface, one of the victims, but she might be holding more secrets. I sent a text to Ethan, keeping my tone as normal as possible, saying I'd bring over some soup and check on him. He replied after a long time with a simple K along with the address to the apartment he and Laura shared. He'd apparently been holed up there alone for days. That afternoon, I picked up some takeout soup. I was in no mood to cook and took a cab over. Their apartment was in a decent, if not new building. When I knocked, Ethan opened the door. He was unshaven, his eyes were red, and he was wearing a wrinkled t-shirt. He looked like his soul had left his body. Chloe, you're here. He stepped aside to let me in, his voice hoarse. The apartment was dark, the curtains drawn. It smelled of old food and dust. Takeout containers were piled on the coffee table, and an unfolded blanket lay on the sofa. He'd clearly been grieving hard. I set the soup on a relatively clean spot on the counter and went to open the curtains a little. "Ethan, you need to pull yourself together. You can't go on like this." He collapsed onto the sofa, burying his face in his hands. "How am I supposed to pull myself together? Laura's just gone. I still don't get it. How could she and Michael? How could they have died together?" His tone was more pained and confused than angry. He hadn't fully accepted the affair, or maybe he didn't want to. I sat in the armchair next to him and spoke gently. "Ethan, sometimes things aren't as simple as they seem. I need you to think hard and answer something for me. In the last 6 months, did you notice anything different about Laura? Was she spending more money than usual? Did she get strange calls, act secretive?" Ethan looked up at me, dazed. "Money, well, she did buy a few expensive bags and some jewelry. She said she got a promotion and a raise, that it was a gift to herself. As for calls, she did sometimes go to the balcony or the bathroom to talk. When I asked, she just said it was annoying work stuff. A promotion and a raise. Laura worked an admin job at a small import-export company. How much of a raise could she have gotten?" I sneered internally. With Michael's siphoned $300,000 and the $7 million policy hanging in the balance, even a fraction of that would have been enough for a spending spree. "Did she ever mention insurance?" I asked, watching his expression closely. "Insurance," Ethan frowned, trying to remember. "Just the health insurance from her job. She never mentioned anything else. She was healthy. Why would she need a lot of insurance?" He didn't know. Ethan had no idea about the $7 million policy. That meant either Laura had hidden it completely, or its existence was so secret that even Laura herself didn't know the full details, a thought that sent a chill down my spine. "Chloe, why are you asking all this?" Ethan seemed to sense my probing, a hint of wariness in his eyes. "Laura's gone. What's the point of digging all this up? I just want her to rest in peace." His stubborn grief was infuriating, but I knew pushing him now would only make him shut down. "No reason. Just curious." I stood up and started clearing some of the trash from the coffee table. "Make sure you eat the soup before it goes bad. I'm just going to see if there are any of Laura's things that need organizing. We don't want to lose any important documents." Ethan just grunted in response and buried his head in his lap again. I went into their bedroom. It was even messier than the living room, with clothes and makeup strewn everywhere. I walked over to Laura's vanity. I opened the drawers. They were filled with jewelry boxes and hair accessories. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. I moved to the closet. Laura had a lot of clothes. I started going through them, checking the pockets. In the very back, in a beige trench coat that looked like it had barely been worn, my hand felt something in the inner pocket. I pulled it out. It was a folded piece of paper and a small brass-colored key, the kind for a post office box or a small locker. I unfolded the paper. A neat script read, "CTB 308. Nothing else. CTB 308. What was it? A safe combination? A locker number? My heart started to beat a little faster. I clutched the key and the note. This could be a major clue. I quickly put the closet back in order, but a quick scan of the rest of the room revealed nothing else of interest. I walked out of the bedroom. "Ethan," I said to his slumped form on the sofa, "I found one of Laura's keys, but I don't know what it's for. I'll hold on to it for now in case it's for something important." He just mumbled an affirmative without looking up. I said no more and left. As soon as I was downstairs, I pulled out my phone and did a quick search for CTB. Countless results popped up. It was too broad. Adding 308 didn't help. What could it stand for? I thought about places Laura frequented, her office, the malls she liked. Suddenly, it hit me. A high-end bank in the city center. City Trust Bank. Laura had once bragged to me that her boss had a private safe deposit box there, and the service was excellent. City Trust Bank. C.T.B. Could this key be for a safe deposit box at City Trust Bank? Was CTB 308 the box number? The possibility made me breathless. If so, Laura must have hidden something extremely important in there. It could be direct evidence, intimate photos of her and Michael, letters, maybe even the original $7 million insurance policy. Or it could be something even more shocking. I had to get to that bank. But safe deposit boxes were secure. You needed the key, the owner's ID, and in this case, a death certificate, proof of inheritance, and a password or signature. All I had was a mysterious key and a guess. There was no way I could get in. What could I do? I had to be smart. Maybe I could find a way to confirm if Laura even had a box there. The account information might hold a clue. I thought of Harrison. With his resources, he might have a way to access that kind of private information. I immediately sent him a text briefly explaining my discovery and my theory, asking if he could help me verify it. He replied quickly with his usual concise and clear style. "Received. We'll look into it. We'll contact you with any news." I put my phone away and looked at the small brass key and the note in my palm. They felt heavy. It was as if Laura had passed me a baton from the other side. Or maybe it was the key to Pandora's box. Michael, Laura. How many secrets were you hiding? You thought it would all be over once you were dead. Well, guess what? The truth is like a seed buried in the ground. Sooner or later it's going to sprout. And I'm the one who's going to do the digging. The small brass key and the note reading CTB 308 felt like hot coals in my pocket. A safe deposit box at City Trust Bank. What on earth had Laura hidden in there? Damning evidence? Or another deeper mystery? There was no word yet from Harrison, and I couldn't get into the bank. The frustration of knowing a clue was just out of reach was driving me crazy. I couldn't just wait. I had to do something, even if it meant stirring the pot and risking tipping off Kevin and his mother. I couldn't let them rest easy. Just as I was thinking this, my phone rang. An unfamiliar area code. I hesitated, then answered. Is this Miss Chloe Davis? A young-sounding male voice asked very politely. Yes. Who is this? Good afternoon, Miss Davis. My name is Cole. Mr. Harrison asked me to contact you. He said there have been some initial developments on the matter you were inquiring about. If it's convenient, I'd like to meet and hand over the file. Harrison's man. He worked fast. Yes, that's fine. When and where? I agreed immediately. In an hour. The outdoor cafe on the east side of City Park. I'll be in a gray jacket holding a copy of the Wall Street Journal. His speech was quick and efficient. I'll be there. After hanging up, I took a deep breath. Harrison was reliable. I quickly changed, put on a hat and mask, and took a cab to the park. The cafe was quiet. I easily spotted the young man in the gray jacket. He looked to be in his late 20s, unremarkable in appearance but with sharp, intelligent eyes. I walked over and sat down opposite him. Cole. He looked up, gave me a quick appraising glance, and nodded. Miss Davis, he said, folding his newspaper. He wasted no time on pleasantries, pulling a thin file from a briefcase and sliding it across the table. This is the initial report on the offshore account and money trail. There are a few additional items as well. I took the file, my fingertips trembling slightly. I opened it. The first few pages were bank statements and company structure charts. It was technical, but the gist was clear. The $300,000 Michael siphoned had been routed through several shell companies and ended up in an anonymous account in the British Virgin Islands. It was extremely difficult to trace. And the consulting firm where Ethan had worked did indeed play a role at one stage, but there was no proof Ethan himself knew or participated. This confirmed what Harrison had told me, but it wasn't new. I turned the page. My eyes locked on it. It was a copy of a vehicle repair invoice from a grimy-looking private auto shop on the outskirts of the city. The vehicle was Michael's black Ford Explorer. The date of service was 5 days before the crash. And the service item listed was brake system and electronic power steering inspection and adjustment. Brake system. Power steering. My heart hammered. Michael's car had its brakes and steering service just 5 days before the crash. The background of this auto shop is complicated, Cole said in a low voice, tapping the name on the invoice. The owner has a record. They mostly handle off-the-books jobs. When our people went to inquire, he insisted it was just a routine electrical check. But our source inside told us that someone deliberately tampered with the vehicle's brake line. A slow leak. You wouldn't notice it in normal driving, but during a sudden stop or on a long downhill stretch, the brake performance would degrade rapidly, or even fail completely. My hands and feet turned to ice. The brakes were tampered with. This wasn't an accident. It was a planned murder. Michael and Laura were murdered. Who took the car in for service? My voice was dry. Cole shook his head. The records show Michael Peterson brought it in himself. However, he paused, lowering his voice even more. We obtained some grainy security footage from a convenience store nearby. About 30 minutes after Michael dropped off the car, another man entered the shop. He stayed for about 20 minutes and then left. The footage is very blurry, but his build and gait are highly consistent with the profile we have on Kevin Peterson. Kevin. It was him. He was involved. He might even be the mastermind. He used the service as a cover to sabotage his own brother's car. Why? For the inheritance. For the company. And Laura. Was she a co-conspirator? Or was she silenced? The sheer volume of information hit me like a physical blow. I felt dizzy. I forced myself to focus and kept turning the pages. The next section contained several photos clearly taken covertly. One showed Kevin meeting with the auto shop owner in the corner of a diner. The timing was before the car service. Another showed Susan, my mother-in-law, outside her favorite bingo hall talking to a thuggish-looking man in a loud shirt. Susan appeared to be handing him a thick envelope. The date on this photo was the day before the accident. Susan was involved too. How much did she know? Was she just helping Kevin? Or was she a participant in the plot to murder her own son? A tiger doesn't eat its own cubs. How deep did the rot in this family go? The final photo made the blood freeze in my veins. It was a long-shot photo taken at the entrance of an upscale apartment complex. Kevin's car was parked there. A person was getting out. It was a woman in a red dress. It was Laura. She was smiling, leaning down to wave at Kevin in the driver's seat before turning and walking into the building. The date on the photo was 1 month before the accident. Laura and Kevin. They had a relationship too. My God. The web was so tangled. Did Michael know? Did Ethan Laura was involved with both brothers? The baby she was carrying? Whose was it? I felt like I'd been punched in the head. My vision swam. This wasn't just about an affair and a murder for money. This was a horrifying saga of betrayal, incest, conspiracy, and slaughter. Michael, Laura, Kevin, Susan. They were all actors, all making their own calculations, and it all ended in a tragedy of mutual destruction. Miss Davis, are you all right? Cole asked with concern. I waved a hand, took a few deep breaths, and forced myself to be calm. Can we go to the police with this? Cole shook his head grimly. It would be difficult. The security footage is too blurry to definitively identify Kevin. He could claim the service was a normal repair. The meeting at the bingo hall could be explained away. And Laura meeting Kevin doesn't prove a direct link to the accident. Right now, this is all circumstantial. It doesn't form a complete chain of evidence. The police would have a hard time building a case, let alone getting a conviction. My heart sank. Of course. If Kevin dared to do this, he would have covered his tracks, destroyed all the direct evidence. Mr. Harrison's assessment is this, Cole continued. Our opponent is very cunning. We need something more concrete. A recorded confession, direct proof of a financial transaction, or getting that mechanic to flip. But that will take time, and it's risky. I understood Harrison's concern. Kevin was a cornered rat now. He'd be on high alert. And Mr. Harrison wanted me to pass on a warning, Cole said, his eyes serious. Expect a move from Kevin's side. It's highly likely he already suspects you're investigating. Please be careful. I nodded. I clutched the file to my chest. These papers were heavy not just with the truth of Michael and Laura's deaths, but with the terrifying reality of my own danger. Kevin was a snake. He had killed his own brother. He wouldn't hesitate to get rid of a sister-in-law who knew too much and stood in his way. Please thank Mr. Harrison for me, I said, standing up. I know what I need to do. Leaving the park, the afternoon sun felt warm, but I felt no heat. Only a bone-deep chill. From the moment Michael had asked me to go on that hike, I had stepped into a meticulously designed death trap. By some twist of fate, I had survived, and the architects of the trap had fallen into it themselves. But now, I, the survivor, had become their last and greatest threat. Kevin would not let me live. I looked at the people on the street, and for the first time felt a profound sense of isolation and danger. But the fear was fleeting. It was quickly replaced by a more intense hatred and determination. Kevin. Susan. You thought you could get away with murder, claim your blood-soaked inheritance, and live happily ever after. Dream on. Even if it means we all go down together, I, Chloe Davis, will drag every last one of you to hell with me. My next target was the mechanic. I had to find him and make him talk. And Laura's safe deposit box. I had to get it open as soon as possible. It had to contain the final fatal blow. The photos and the repair invoice from Cole shattered the last of my foolish illusions about the Peterson family. Tampered brakes, Kevin at the auto shop, Susan's suspicious cash payment, and Laura's secret meeting with Kevin, it all painted a picture so vile it made me sick. This was a cold-blooded, calculated murder. He killed his own brother, and he killed a woman who might have been carrying his child. If that baby was his, then Kevin was even more monstrous than I could have imagined. Back in the hotel, I went over the evidence again and again, memorizing every detail. After the rage and disgust, a cold, almost detached calm settled over me. Crying and being afraid wouldn't solve anything. The only thing to do now was to fight back in a way they feared most. Cole was right. This circumstantial evidence wasn't enough to bring Kevin down. I needed a smoking gun. The mechanic Walt was the key. He was the one who did the deed. If he confessed and pointed the finger at Kevin, it would be a fatal blow. Harrison's people were still trying to pin down his exact whereabouts and any weaknesses, but that would take time. And time was what I didn't have. Kevin wasn't stupid. He must have realized I was onto him from the moment I brought up the insurance policy. He would be working fast to erase his tracks, and he might even make a move against me. I couldn't wait. I had to act first. Even if it meant spooking him, I had to pressure him, force him to make a mistake. That auto shop. I had to go there myself. Even if Walt wasn't there or wouldn't talk, at least I could see the place where this evil began. Maybe I'd find something else. The next morning, following the address on the invoice, I took a cab to the outskirts of the city. The area was industrial and run down. Walt's garage was an unremarkable place, with a small, faded sign. The entrance was cluttered with old tires, the ground stained with oil. A young mechanic was working under a car. I pulled my cap down and walked in. It was dark inside. A middle-aged man who had to be Walt was slouched on a grimy sofa, smoking and scrolling on his phone. He looked up, his eyes cloudy and wary. "Here for a repair, no? I have a few questions for the owner," I said, walking up to him. "I'm Walt. What's this about?" He looked me up and down, his gaze lingering on my face for a moment, as if I looked familiar, but he couldn't place me. I took out my phone and showed him the picture of Michael's Explorer. "This car was serviced here about 10 days ago, right? A black Ford Explorer." Walt leaned in. His expression flickered for a second before he schooled it back to indifference. He waved my phone away. "I see dozens of cars a day. Can't remember 'em all. Besides, customer info is private." His reaction told me he remembered perfectly well and he was trying to hide it. I was sure of it. I put my phone away, my voice turning cold. "Let's be honest, Walt. That car went off a cliff 5 days ago. The 2 people inside are dead. The police are investigating whether it was an accident. I hear you have security cameras here. Maybe they caught something useful." I was bluffing. Cole had told me the cameras were broken. Walt's eyelid twitched. He tried to act nonchalant. "Cameras have been busted for ages. Didn't catch nothing. Car went off a cliff. That's the driver's bad luck. Got nothing to do with me. I just fix cars. That's it." "Right." I took another step closer, staring him down, my voice a low, icy whisper. "Then how do you explain this? How is it that after this car was serviced at your garage, the brakes were tampered with to cause a slow pressure leak?" "Walt, that's murder. And you're the one who did it. Accessory to murder. I don't need to tell you what the penalty for that is, do I?" The color drained from Walt's face. The cigarette nearly fell from his lips. He shot up, his voice cracking with shock and anger. "What? What are you talking about? Tampered brakes? Murder, lady? You better watch your mouth. You say one more crazy thing, I'm calling the cops." "The cops? Good," I sneered. "Let them come. They can see what kind of shady business you're running here. Maybe take a look at your books while they're at it. And someone saw you taking money from an old lady named Peterson outside a bingo hall the day before the accident. How do you explain that I threw in the photo of him with Susan? I didn't show it, but the threat was enough." Walt was completely flustered. His eyes darted around nervously. He grabbed my arm and pulled me into a corner of the garage. "Who the hell are you?" he hissed, his voice urgent and scared. "What do you want? Who am I?" I stared at him, my eyes like daggers. "I'm the wife of the man who died in that car. The man you helped murder. I have one question for you. The person who told you to tamper with the brakes? It was Kevin Peterson, wasn't it? How much did he pay you?" Walt's lips trembled. His eyes were a mixture of conflict and terror. He obviously knew how ruthless Kevin could be and was afraid to betray him. But he was also terrified that I would actually go to the police. I can't say. If I talk, I'm a dead man," he stammered. "If you don't talk, you're a dead man now," I said flatly. "Whatever Kevin can offer you, I can double it. And I can guarantee your safety. But if you stay silent when I get my proof, you'll be the first one to go to prison. You think Kevin will protect you? He killed his own brother. In the end, he'll use you as a scapegoat." My words were like a hammer chipping away at his defenses. He sank onto a pile of old tires, his head in his hands, breathing heavily. After a long moment, he looked up, his eyes bloodshot, his face a mask of grim resolution. "Yeah. It was Kevin," he said, his voice hoarse as if the words were being torn from him. "He came to me, said if I could mess with his brother's brakes, make it look like an accident, he'd give me 50 grand when it was done. He gave me 20,000 up front. It was him." Hearing it confirmed still sent a jolt through me. "The proof. The payment records your call logs," I pressed. "Cash. All cash." Walt shook his head. He was careful. "Used a burner phone. Tossed it right after. The guy's a snake." "What about the evidence of the tampering? What did you do with the old brake line?" "Kevin took the old parts with him right then and there." Walt's eyes flickered. "He took the evidence." "Of course he did. He was thorough." My heart sank, but I couldn't give up. "Is there nothing left? Think. Did he leave fingerprints? Was he caught on any other cameras when he met you?" Walt frowned, thinking hard. Suddenly his head snapped up. "Fingerprints? I don't know. But one time when he came here, we talked in the little storage room in the back." He pointed to a small door behind a dirty curtain. "He used the old calculator on the desk in there to figure out some numbers. I don't think that thing's been wiped down in years." The calculator. My eyes lit up. This could be it. It was a long shot, but if Kevin's fingerprints were on it. "And one more thing." Walt added, his voice even lower. "When he was here, he seemed really nervous. Kept looking at his phone. He took a call. I overheard him say, 'Mom, is the money ready? Don't worry, I've taken care of things on this end.' Mom, Susan. She knew. She might have even provided the funds. Mother and son, a matched set." "Where's the calculator? I need to see it now," I said. Walt hesitated, then got up and went into the cluttered storage room. He came back with an old yellowed calculator. I carefully took it, wrapping it in a tissue, and put it in my bag. This was my only hope for direct physical evidence. If a single word of our conversation today gets out. I looked at Walt coldly. You know what will happen. I won't go to the police yet, but you'd better be available when I call. And if Kevin contacts you again, you call me immediately. Walt nodded repeatedly, sweat beading on his forehead. I didn't linger. Clutching the bag with the calculator, I quickly left that disgusting garage. The sun was bright, but I felt no warmth, only a bone-deep chill and the thrill of knowing I was close to unraveling the final mystery. Kevin, Susan, your fingerprints, your phone calls, your sins. I'm getting closer. The old calculator wrapped in a tissue felt both like a hot potato and a priceless treasure. I clutched it all the way back to the hotel. I could almost feel the faint trace of Kevin's fingerprints on the buttons. Walt's words echoed in my head. Mom is the money ready, Susan. My dear mother-in-law. She didn't just know. She bankrolled it. She used money her son Michael might have given her to help her other son murder him. There were no words for that level of evil. It was a complete betrayal of humanity. Rage hot as lava churned in my chest. But I suppressed it. Walt's testimony and a long-shot fingerprint on a calculator weren't enough, especially against someone as practiced as Susan. She could deny everything, even turn it around and accuse me of framing them. I needed something more direct, something that would shatter her defenses. I thought of the photo Harrison had given me, Susan, at the bingo hall, handing an envelope to that thuggish man. Who was he? What was the money for? Who was she paying off? I immediately took a photo of the picture and sent it to Cole, asking him to identify the man and to check for any large cash withdrawals from Susan's accounts recently. Waiting for his reply was torture. I paced the room, a volatile mix of hatred and excitement, making my nerves raw. In the evening, Cole called. Miss Davis, we have a hit. His voice was tired but clear. The man in the photo is a local fixer who goes by Leo. He has a reputation for handling dirty work, surveillance, intimidation, and worse. The day before the accident, Susan Peterson withdrew $40 0 inches cash from one of her savings accounts in 2 separate transactions. We have clear security footage of the withdrawal. $40,000. Paid to a thug. Was it to silence Walt or for something else? To ensure the old brake line disappeared, to make sure the crash scene looked like an accident. A bolder theory formed in my mind. Maybe this $40 000 wasn't just support. Maybe it was a payment to ensure that Michael and Laura died. Why would she do that? For the $5 million policy, and to help Kevin inherit everything. A tiger doesn't eat its own cubs, unless Michael's existence threatened something even more important to her. Or unless Michael wasn't. I couldn't let my mind go there. The waters were too deep, too murky. Regardless, the evidence that Susan had paid for a hit, or at least to aid in one, was much more direct. Combined with Walt's testimony, it formed a complete chain pointing directly at her and Kevin. It was time. Time to pay a visit to my dear mother-in-law. I wanted to see for myself what kind of rotten heart was beating beneath her cold, hypocritical mask. I knew that around this time Susan would be at her usual bingo hall near her apartment. I gathered my evidence, the audio recording of my conversation with Walt, a printout of the photo of her with Leo, and a printout of the withdrawal records. Then I took a cab. The bingo hall was smoky and loud. I spotted Susan at a table in the back. She was on a winning streak, a small pile of cash in front of her, a slight smile on her face as she boasted to her friends about her son Kevin, no doubt. When she saw me at the entrance, her smile vanished, replaced by a look of disgust and alarm. What are you doing here? She snapped. This is no place for a jinx like you. The table went quiet. I ignored her and walked straight up to her. Susan, I said calmly. We need to talk. About a new development in Michael's accident. The words, new development, made the color drain from her face. She tried to act tough, but her eyes betrayed her panic. She pushed her chips aside. You all go on ahead, she said to her friends. I have some family business to take care of. She got up and glared at me. If you have something to say it outside. Don't embarrass me here. I followed her out to a deserted alleyway next to the hall. She spun around, hands on her hips like a street brawler. Chloe, what is your problem? Michael is dead. What more do you want? I'm telling you, you're not getting a dime of the inheritance. Give it up. I couldn't help but laugh at her bluster. I slowly pulled the printed photo from my pocket and held it up. Susan, do you know this man? They call him Leo. A fixer. The day before the accident, you withdrew $40 0 inches cash and gave it to him. Would you care to explain what you hired him to do with that money? Susan's eyes went wide. She stared at the photo, her face turning ashen. Her lips trembled. For a long moment, she was speechless. You're talking nonsense. Where did you get that fake picture? Her voice was shrill, but it had lost its bite. A fake picture, I sneered, pulling out the withdrawal record. Then I suppose the bank security footage of you taking out that $40 000 is fake too. We can go to the bank right now and see the original if you'd like. Susan looked at the record and her body began to shake uncontrollably. Horror filled her eyes. She never dreamed I could have dug this deep. I took another step closer, my voice low but filled with pressure. Walt, the mechanic, has already confessed everything. He told me Kevin hired him to tamper with Michael's brakes, promised him 50 grand. Remember the call Kevin made to you? Mom, is the money ready? I've taken care of things on this end. Susan, was that money to ensure that my husband, your son, would die? Shut up. It wasn't me. I don't know anything. Susan lost it, completely screaming and flailing her arms. It was Kevin. It was all Kevin's idea. He said if Michael died, the insurance money and the company would all be ours. He said he'd handle it perfectly. I just gave him some money. She finally broke. Her psychological defenses crumbled in the face of the evidence. She collapsed onto the ground, sobbing, beating the pavement with her fists. But this time her tears were real, filled with terror and regret. Oh my Michael, I'm so sorry, I must have been possessed. Kevin threatened me. He said if I didn't help, neither of us would make it out alive. Hearing her incoherent wailing, I felt no pity, only a profound, bottomless disgust. For money, for some twisted idea of survival, she could do this to her own son. What about Laura? I asked coldly. Was she part of your plan, or was her death an accident? Susan's sobbing hitched. She looked up, her tear-streaked face, a mess, her eyes darting nervously. Laura. That little tramp. She had it coming. She seduced Michael, then she tried to blackmail Kevin with the baby. She knew too much. She had to die. So Laura was silenced. She had threatened Kevin. And the baby. It must have really been Kevin's. This sordid, twisted affair. I wanted to ask more about whose baby it really was, about their specific plan. But just then, a shout came from the mouth of the alley. Chloe. What are you doing to my mother? I spun around. It was Kevin, his face a mask of fury with two thuggish-looking men behind him. He'd gotten here fast. Someone must have called him. The moment Kevin saw his mother on the ground and the papers in my hand, his eyes turned murderous. Give me that, he snarled, lunging for the evidence. I quickly stuffed the papers back in my pocket and stepped back. Kevin. Perfect timing. Your mother was just telling me some very interesting stories. About the brakes, the $40,000, and about Laura. Kevin's face turned a ghastly shade of gray. He stared at me, shocked and furious that his mother had cracked so easily. The two men with him moved to block my exit. The air in the alley crackled with tension. Chloe, you're asking for it. Kevin bit out his eyes as venomous as a snake's. I met his murderous gaze without flinching. I knew this was the most dangerous moment, but I also knew I was just one step away from final victory. The one who's asking for it is you, Kevin, I said, my voice hard as steel. You're a murderer, and you're going to pay for what you did. Both of you. The light at the mouth of the alley was blocked by Kevin and his two goons, casting the narrow space in a suffocating shadow. The air was thick with Susan's terrified sobs and Kevin's ragged, furious breathing. Give it to me, Kevin repeated, stepping closer until he was right in my face. The smell of stale smoke and cornered animal desperation washed over me. The two men fanned out, cutting off any chance of escape. I pressed my back against the cold, damp brick wall. My palms were sweating, but my heart was beating with a strange, steady rhythm. I was scared, of course I was. But more than that, there was a cold sense of inevitability. I knew this confrontation was the most dangerous part. Give you what? I raised my head to look at him, keeping my voice as level as I could. The recording of your mother confessing she paid for her son's murder, or the evidence that you hired Walt to sabotage the brakes. Kevin, do you really think that by taking these pieces of paper you can erase what you've done? Kevin's face was a grotesque mask in the dim light. His eye twitched as he lunged, not for the papers but for my phone. You recorded it, give me the phone. I twisted away from his grasp and yelled, my voice ringing in the alley. Kevin, you lay one finger on me and this all goes public. I've already backed up all the evidence, including what your mother just said to the cloud. If anything happens to me, it gets sent to the police and every news outlet in the state. You and your mother, you won't get away. It was a half bluff, but I was banking on his cornered rat mentality. I was right. His hand froze in midair. The madness in his eyes gave way to a flicker of hesitation. He stared at me, a wild animal caught in a trap. Chloe, what do you want? He snarled, the words torn from his throat. Name your price. How much to make this all disappear? My price, I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. Kevin, you still think money can solve everything. Can it buy back your brother's life, Laura's life? What I want is for you and your mother to turn yourselves in and pay for what you did. Turn ourselves in, dream on, he hissed, the veins in his forehead bulging. That's a death sentence. Chloe, don't push me. If you push me too far, I'll do anything. I'd rather we all go down together. It was a blatant threat. His men tensed. I knew I couldn't push any harder. A cornered animal will bite. I had to pull back, give him a sliver of false hope, make him think there was room to negotiate. I needed to buy time and find a way out. My tone softened, but my eyes remained hard. Kevin, I know you're in a corner. But think about it. Even if you kill me and take the evidence, will you be safe? Do you have any idea how much Harrison's people already know? Are you sure the police have closed the case as an accident? You can silence me, but you can't silence everyone. His eyes flickered. My words had hit their mark. The threat of Harrison was a thorn in his side. I pressed my advantage. We can talk, but not here, not now. Tell your men to back off. Let me leave safely and I'll consider giving the police only some of the evidence. Maybe just the part about your mother providing the money. Shift the main blame to her. She's old, she's your mother. Maybe she'll get a lighter sentence. And you might have a way out. I deliberately used Susan as a shield, hoping to drive a wedge between them. A selfish man like Kevin would not hesitate to sacrifice his mother to save himself. Kevin stared at me, weighing my words, calculating the odds. The alley fell into a strange silence, broken only by Susan's terrified whimpers as she heard me suggesting she take the fall. Finally, Kevin took a deep breath. The madness in his eyes receded, replaced by cold calculation. He waved his men back. You two wait at the end of the alley. They hesitated, then retreated. Kevin stepped close, his voice a low, desperate snarl. I don't believe a word you say, Chloe. But you're right about one thing. We're in the same boat now. If we tear each other apart, we both sink. I'll give you one day. Tomorrow, same time, same place. You bring every copy of that evidence and we'll settle this for good. If you're playing games... He didn't finish, but the murder in his eyes said it all. One day, I repeated, neither agreeing nor disagreeing. I'll be in touch. Without another glance, I straightened my back and walked as steadily as I could toward the mouth of the alley. As I passed his two goons, I could feel their eyes on my back like knives. It was only when I was back on the crowded street, feeling the light and hearing the noise of the city, that I realized my back was soaked with cold sweat and my legs were weak. That short confrontation had drained me completely. I knew Kevin settling this was not going to be a peaceful negotiation. He was buying time to set a trap and get rid of me for good. I had one day to find the final knockout evidence. The fingerprints on the calculator. The contents of Laura's safe deposit box. And I had to contact Harrison and Cole, immediately update them and ask for help. The crisis wasn't over. It was more imminent than ever. But I knew I had pushed Kevin and Susan to the very edge of the cliff. All it would take was one final push. And that push was coming. I pulled out my phone, dialing Harrison's number as I hurried down the street. Safely back in the car, I finally allowed myself to relax. My whole body was trembling. The encounter with Kevin had been like dancing on a razor's edge. His bloodshot, crazed eyes were burned into my memory. His offer of one day was a death trap in the making. I had to move faster than him. The first thing I did back in the hotel was call Harrison. I relayed everything that had just happened, Susan's breakdown, her confession, and Kevin's threat. On the other end, Harrison was silent for a few moments. When he spoke, his tone was graver than ever. Miss Davis, you are in extreme danger. Kevin is a cornered animal. You can't stay at that hotel. I'm sending someone to move you to a secure location immediately. And the calculator and the safe deposit box, we need to move on them now. They might be our best chance for definitive proof. I have the calculator, I said. It's sealed in a bag. I'll have Cole pick it up. He has a contact who can run a rush analysis. It won't be admissible in court, but if we get a preliminary match, it's a major breakthrough. Harrison's mind was already several steps ahead. As for the safe deposit box, he continued, I was just about to call you. We have news. We've confirmed Laura Reed did rent a box at City Trust Bank number CTB 308. The emergency contact listed on the account is Kevin Peterson. Kevin. Of course. Their connection ran deeper than I'd even imagined. But here's the problem, Harrison went on. By the book, after the renter's death, only the legal heir, your brother Ethan, can open it, and only with a death certificate notarized, proof of inheritance, and so on. We can't get all that in one day. My heart sank. If the legal route was a dead end. However, Harrison's voice took on a sly, cunning edge. The head of security at that branch is a distant cousin of mine. I've spoken to him. He's willing to look the other way. Find a way for us to unofficially access the box for a few minutes tonight when the night shift is thinnest. We can't take anything, but we can photograph or copy whatever is inside. It's a huge risk and it has to be tonight. Are you willing to take that chance? Was I? How could I not? Yes, I said without hesitation. I'll do it. When and where? 11 p.m. tonight. The back entrance of the City Trust Bank. Cole will meet you there with the necessary equipment and personnel. Remember, you only get one shot. You have to be fast. I hung up and looked out at the darkening sky. My heart was pounding, not with fear, but with a furious, exhilarating thrill. The final piece of the puzzle was within reach. At 10:50 p.m., I was there dressed in dark clothing. Cole was waiting with another man dressed as a bank maintenance worker carrying a toolbox. The maintenance worker quickly disabled the electronic lock on the back door. Inside the bank was pitch black, save for the faint glow of emergency lights. We followed him through a maze of corridors, avoiding cameras to the basement vault. He located box CTB 308 and began to work on the lock. The silence was absolute, broken only by the faint whirring of his tools. Finally, with a soft click, the small door popped open. Cole, wearing white gloves, carefully opened it. Inside was a thick manila envelope and a small velvet jewelry box. He opened the envelope first, quickly scanning the documents inside with a portable scanner. I leaned in. My heart was in my throat. The first document was the original $7 million insurance policy. The second was a share trust agreement showing Michael had secretly transferred a portion of his Innovatech shares to Laura's name. The third was a handwritten ledger, detailing the payments to W. Walt and L. Leo with dates that matched perfectly. It was their conspiracy playbook. The last document was a pregnancy confirmation from a clinic. Patient Laura Reed. Result approximately 8 weeks pregnant. At the bottom in neat handwriting was a small note. For our baby. Waiting for you, Kevin. It was Kevin's baby. She was pregnant with Kevin's child, waiting for him to... What? Leave his wife, marry her. But all she got was death. Cole quickly scanned everything, then opened the velvet box. Inside was a single small black USB drive. He plugged it into a secure laptop. On it was a single audio file. He put on earbuds, listened, and his face grew grim. He took them off and played the file aloud. It was Laura's voice, choked with tears. Kevin, you lied to me. You said after we got the money we'd leave together, and now you're going to dump me. I'm pregnant, Kevin. It's your baby. If you don't take responsibility, I'll tell Chloe everything. I'll go to the police. We'll all go down together. Then Kevin's cold, chilling voice. Laura, you really are asking to die. I was going to let you live, but you brought this on yourself. Don't blame me. Blame yourself for knowing too much and wanting too much. The recording ended. It was the final piece. Kevin had used Laura, promising her a future, then decided to eliminate her when she became a threat. Cole quickly copied the USB's contents. They placed everything back in the box, wiped it clean, and we slipped out of the bank as silently as we had entered. Sitting in Cole's car, I held the laptop containing copies of every damning piece of evidence. It felt like a bomb. We have everything now, Miss Davis, Cole said. I advise we go to the police immediately. No, I said, my voice strangely calm as I watched the city lights flash by. Not yet. Kevin wants to settle things tomorrow. I'm going to meet him. I want to watch him and his mother crumble on the stage they built for themselves. A vicious thrill, like a potent liquor, burned through my veins. The night was deep. I sat in Cole's nondescript sedan parked across the street from the alley. My laptop filled with enough evidence to bury the Petersons rested on my lap. I felt a cold, detached calm. Cole was in the driver's seat, coordinating with the plainclothes police officers who were already in position. After hearing the audio file and seeing the other evidence, the police had moved fast, setting up a sting operation. The alley looked normal, but I knew it was surrounded. At 7:58 p.m., Kevin appeared. He was alone, looking even more agitated than the day before. He paced at the entrance, scanning the area. The disguised officers played their parts perfectly. Finally, he seemed satisfied and walked into the dark alley. Target is in position, Cole murmured into his mic. I took a deep breath, got out of the car, and walked towards the alley. He heard my footsteps and spun around. His eyes were a mix of hatred, suspicion, and a feral aggression. The stuff he demanded. What stuff? I asked, calmly, stopping a safe distance away. Don't play dumb, Chloe, he snarled. All of it. The originals, the copies, everything. Or you're not walking out of this alley. Not walking out, I laughed, a sharp, clear sound. Kevin, who do you think isn't walking out of this alley tonight? His pupils contracted. He realized something was wrong. What do you mean? Did you call the cops? Cops. I looked at him as if he were a clown. When you're dealing with a murderer, isn't that what you're supposed to do, you bitch? He completely lost control, pulling a knife from his jacket and lunging at me. Give it to me. The moment he moved, shouts erupted from both ends of the alley. Police dropped the weapon, freeze beams. From several powerful flashlights pinned him in place. 7 or 8 armed plainclothes officers materialized from the shadows surrounding him. Kevin froze the knife in his hand. His expression shifted from crazed fury to utter disbelief. He couldn't seem to process what was happening. Kevin Peterson, drop the knife. You're under arrest for murder, an officer commanded. Kevin's hand trembled and the knife clattered to the ground. He looked from the guns pointed at him to my impassive face, and understanding finally dawned. His legs gave out and he nearly collapsed. 2 officers moved in swiftly, cuffing him. As they dragged him past me, he craned his neck, his eyes filled with a desperate, venomous hatred. Chloe, you'll pay for this, he rasped. I'll come back as a ghost and haunt you. I met his gaze, my face a blank mask. Tell that to the judge, Kevin. And to the people you murdered. Just as they led him away, my phone rang. It was the lead detective from the other team. Miss Davis Susan Peterson is in custody. She confessed to her part in the conspiracy. It was over. The curtain had finally fallen on their sick drama. I stood there in the empty alley, the adrenaline suddenly draining away. I swayed and Cole quickly steadied me. "Are you all right, Miss Davis?" I shook my head, taking a deep breath of the cold night air. The immense weight on my chest was finally gone. There was no elation, just a profound, bone-deep exhaustion and a sense of release. Epilogue. The next day, the news of the mother-son murder conspiracy was a media sensation. Faced with the mountain of evidence, their attempts to blame each other were futile. The law would deal with them. I cooperated with the police, and the truth of Michael and Laura's deaths was made public. I was no longer the pitiable widow. I got back everything that was rightfully mine, including the assets Michael had hidden. I sold the condo, cutting ties with the past for good. My brother Ethan was devastated by the truth. After a long recovery, he emerged a changed man, quieter, but stronger. He quit his job and moved to a new city to start over. "Chloe," he said before he left, his eyes red, "I'm sorry, and thank you. I knew he needed time to heal." Harrison met me one last time at the same coffee shop. "It's all over now," he said calmly. "Any plans for the future?" I smiled, watching the tea leaves in my cup. "I haven't thought about it. Maybe I'll travel for a while. Just see where the road takes me." He nodded, telling me the door at Apex Dynamics was always open for me. I was grateful, but I knew I needed to walk my own path. A few days later, I was at the airport with a small suitcase heading to a sunny city in Florida. I didn't know how long I'd stay or what the future held. Standing at the security gate, I looked back one last time at the city that had witnessed my love, my despair, my revenge, and my rebirth. As the plane took off and broke through the clouds, the cabin was flooded with brilliant sunlight. I closed my eyes, feeling the warmth on my face. Michael. Laura. Our accounts are settled. And for Chloe Davis, a new life was just beginning.